Hello everyone, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our hands-on review of the Bassplay P3000. This is a hi-fi quality digital MP3 player that retails for $60, making it pretty inexpensive for something that has a built-in DAC and also promises, again, high-res quality in terms of music playback and a pretty decent construction quality. Now, it comes with no built-in memory, but the version we're checking out today has a free 16GB card included in the box, which you can replace by your own capacity if you want a larger version. So the whole point of getting a MP3 player in 2018 when most folks can already do the same functions on a smartphone is going to be for that built-in DAC and high-res capability, which if you really care about the sound and you have some more expensive headphones to listen really closely, it can definitely be worthwhile. Or if you want to go to the gym or take something ultra lightweight and not have to carry around your phone, this is also a decent option to check out. So this is what the packaging looks like. Most of the letters are in Chinese. This is a company based in Shenzhen, and on the back here we can see it has a battery capacity that's rated at roughly 20 playback hours. We have the player right on top, which we'll take a closer look at in a second, but first impressions would be it's a lot smaller than what the ads probably make it seem like because it's cast at an angle, but it's actually very lightweight, about the same size as an older iPod Nano back in the day. And in here we also have some free included earphones, but these are not the best quality, and obviously if you care about sound, you would want to use your own. Here is the 16GB free micro SD card. Micro USB cable for syncing and charging, takes about 2 hours to completely charge, and there's also a carrying pouch to protect it when on the go. This is not the first digital MP3 player that we've checked out from this company, Bassplay. The last version that we did was the S5, which came out several months back, but this is a budget-oriented model, which although supports lossless audio formats like Flac, does not have a built-in DAC, or digital to analog converter, so it's not quite as audiophile grade as something like this for plugging in more premium headsets and headphones. But in terms of size and form factor, it really is about the same as those other players that we've been checking out recently, including the Bassplay S5 over here, which you can see that next to the P3000 is actually really similar in terms of form factor. But we also have the placement of the keys on the side. There's a power switch on here, and what's different is instead of having a plasticky construction on the front as well as a traditional D-pad, it's replaced by this scroll wheel on the side here that gives it a slightly more fancy and expensive look. Another quick size comparison with the Samsung P3, which we also did a throwback review on just a few days ago, also made out of aluminum, but this one has a 3-inch display. It also supports lossless audio formats like Flac, and finally with a modern smartphone, and it looks absolutely tiny by comparison, so you can tell that how portable it is to just slide into a pocket when you're on the go. So a closer look at the hardware before we dive into the software. It is very well constructed. The entire thing is made out of CNC aluminum that is a unibody and feels extremely durable. The front here is also made out of glass, and the controls have a nice tactile sensation to them as you're clicking. The scroll wheel is a little bit too sensitive in my opinion, but it has a nice click when you're scrolling along. Quick look at the software next. The first thing I want to point out is the side controls here are no longer acting as the volume keys. Instead, they're acting as the skip track controls. So for instance, if we're playing back a song over here, if I tap on this, you can see that it's going to go over to the next track, as opposed to changing the volume. Instead, changing the volume is controlled using the scroll wheel. I would actually prefer it was the other way around, because if this player is just in your pocket, I feel like it's easier to control the volume using mechanical keys as opposed to feeling your way using this wheel on the side. The wheel is also a little bit sensitive, so it can accidentally trigger a volume change if you just put it into pockets or tighter jeans. I also do wish that the placement of the keys were slightly more higher on the player, or maybe if the display was on the bottom and the controls were on the top. If you think about that, it's kind of a strange design choice, but it's because your hands are naturally holding it like this, and so moving your thumb downwards to purposefully kind of change the volume and other controls is not the most ergonomic thing in the world. So the display on first impression seems fairly bright, although because it has a reflective surface, it still is a little bit difficult to see in direct sunlight, but overall I like the color as well as the resolution seems just fine for a player like this. It can display your album art information if available on the side here, and this really is a dedicated music player. It doesn't have any additional functions like watching movies or storing photos. What I also like is after a few seconds this screen times out to conserve on battery, but you can still control things without having to turn the display back on. So for instance, as the display is off, I can still be adjusting the volume, and if I tap on the wake button again, you can see that the volume has changed there. Otherwise, I can tap on the back key here to basically go back into previous menus. This is what the interface looks like as far as scrolling is concerned. It's pretty smooth and responsive. The screen here again has pretty good contrast, and I like the orange and black theme. I think that it looks pretty classy. There's also the battery status in the top right hand corner and the volume settings on the left. Tapping on back once more returns us to the actual home screen, which is displayed as a carousel of different functions. So whether it's sorting your music by category and genres, taking a look at all of your music at once, going to settings to change some of the profiles, and you can also favorite tracks to have it play back in a specific kind of playlist that you set using the player. So it's all pretty intuitive. To select on something, you actually don't press down on the wheel or tap on play, which is, again, takes a little bit of time to get used to. You actually tap on the menu key, which can seem a little counterintuitive at first, but you tap on it once to go in, and from here you're able to change languages, create playlists, change the screen brightness, sleep timer, things like that. One of the benefits of having a player that's based out of China is it supports a lot of languages out of the box. So you can play back songs if your titles are in Chinese or you are a fan of world music, things like Spanish with accents. Many other MP3 players will fail to display those characters correctly, and you'll have blocky text or random letters popping up if you're trying to play back a song in a different language. But on here, everything is actually displayed correctly. If we take a quick look at the equalizer settings next, it's pretty cool because I can cycle through a few different modes. If you want to, you can create your own custom equalizer. So for instance, I want to tweak some of these sound properties. So you can move this up, you can move it down like that. And also cycle between several different preset equalizers like rock. This is what the sound signature is like by default. This is pop music, this is soft, jazz, classical, techno, and going back to the custom. For music performance, the most important thing of this player, obviously, it does first of all support all the formats that it claims to on the box. So I tried it out with Flac, which is a lossless audio formats that are supposedly better than CD quality. So if you plug in decent headphones, you really do hear more detail with the sound. Now, when it comes to the actual audio quality, I was also, again, pretty impressed, considering this is still a pretty low cost to pay for a high-res audio certified player. Just a few years back, I think the audiophile players were much more niche. They're getting slightly more mainstream now, but if you just want to plug in some small, lightweight earbuds, you can already get some pretty great sound using these. It gets plenty of detail, obviously dependent on the headphones you're testing them out with, but I was, again, very impressed. When doing a comparison with, let's say, an iPhone or iPod, they were miles ahead in terms of clarity, giving you deeper bass as well as more definition within the sound. I know there are a few other low-cost, high-res players on the market now, one which is by Doducool that sells for about the same price. It has a slightly larger 2-inch display, but this version seems to have a stronger build quality, which is completely made out of aluminum, and since you're not watching videos on these things anyways, a more compact form factor is in the end more beneficial, I think, just because it's easier to tuck with you when you're traveling or on the go. So you can check out more details about the Bassplay P3000 player in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the P3000 Hi-Fi audio player.